Good morning, and once again, thank you all for your very kind and generous comments for my last few videos. And with YouTube, they say that you should have a target audience. And I guess that my target audience is people obviously interested in learning how to read Thai. And regarding level, it's people who know a little bit and want to get better. From the comments I've received, it's obvious that some people are very good, better than me. Some people a bit lower. And I got a comment last week from someone who said I'm completely illiterate. And that will be the case for most Farangs in Thailand. And you know, what do I do to get better? How do I start right at the very bottom? And what I'm going to say to you first isn't how to start learning Thai. I think the most important thing first is to set expectations, set the expectation level appropriately. And many people don't seem to do that. When I was a computer hardware engineer in my previous life, I got to a level where I was quite experienced. And you get new engineers come in, and they'd think that the experienced guys had just learnt some tricks. And that if they could just get the experienced guys to tell them the tricks, they wouldn't have to go through the basics. If they got a particular problem, they'd just have to tap the machine in a certain place and that would fix it. And it's just complete nonsense. You have to learn the basics. When I was teaching English in Thailand, a lot of the students seemed to think that there was a secret trick to learning English as well, but no one would tell them. So if you're a new teacher, the first lesson, it was silence. There was rapt attention because, you know, maybe this was the teacher who was finally going to tell them the secret trick. And then when you just start teaching them present perfect and past continuous and all this, and they just realise it's exactly the same as the other teachers, and they lose interest. And for a while, I made some contributions to Quora, the website about questions and answers. And one question, I think it was from a Singaporean girl. She wanted 5 hacks to be able to speak Thai fluently in 3 months. You know, I've been here over 20 years and I still can't speak Thai fluently. It just seems to be the mentality, especially with younger people, that if you've got the right app on your phone and you look at the right video that's got the right hacks, then you can do anything very quickly. And you just can't. You need to go through all of the basics first, and you can't bypass that. So just set that expectation level, and you've got to know that it's going to take quite a lot of time. It's going to need work, perseverance, and time. It does take a long time. Right, so once you've set your expectation level, what do you do? And I have to think back now to when I was in that situation. So I got to Thailand in November 2003. I left the UK in September, went to Singapore, stayed with my brother for about 5 weeks, and then came up overland through Malaysia. Had a look at Malaysia, and then got into Thailand, I think in November. I signed myself up for a 20-hour conversation course in January 2004. And the first mistake I made, the girl asked me, do I want to learn to read as well? And I immediately said, no. It was so daunting having to learn to speak some Thai that I just thought it was too much to learn to read at the same time. And all of my course notes were made in horrible transliteration. That's a mistake. I would really recommend trying to speak and read at the same time, and then joining the two to see how words are spelt. When I first started, I used a very good book by David Smith. I've mentioned that several times on my YouTube channel. That explained things very well. Benjamin Pumsan Becker has also written some good books. I use her, but mainly David Smith. And I used a lot of learning resources designed for very young Thai kids. I was, at the time I was 43, and I went back to being a 5-year-old. On this book, you can see for ages 5 and over. And how you learn will make a difference. It'd be different for where you are, where you're located. If you're in Thailand, you've got a huge advantage. You know, any bookshop you go into, there's a wealth of learning information for young kids. There are these books, and there are also wall charts. For a long time, when I had a rented room, I had 2 wall charts on my wall, one for consonants, one for vowels, and I annotated notes as well, and they were really useful. And these books were really useful. So the books will give you all the vowels. We've got all the vowels on that first page. Here we've got all the vowel combinations. The top one is the Sara Ot, which is used in the Thai word for islands. This is the one that Farangs can't get right. You know, they always say Ko Samui instead of Got Samui. Go through all the vowels, all the consonants. It will give you sample words using those vowels and consonants. And it gives you pages like this, where you've got little dots, and you can trace over the letters, trace over the consonants and vowels. And you may think, well, I only want to learn to read, I don't want to learn to write. But this helps with memorization. The brain works in strange ways. You can look at something and think you've remembered it, and you don't remember it. If you do this, you sort of write the letter as well, your brain remembers the movement of your hands, and that can help. So I'd really, really recommend getting into a bookshop and getting some of these learning resources for very young Thai kids if you're in Thailand. You know, just go into a shop, you'll probably be able to find the books yourself, go into the right section. Or you can just say, you know, Ko Nang Sư Pasangret Samrap Chan Anuban, you know, English books for level kindergarten. Really, really excellent resources, and dirt cheap as well. You know, something like this. What's got a price on it? Yeah, 39 baht. Really, really cheap. If you're not in Thailand, it's a lot more difficult. However, before my YouTube tutorials, I did some web-based tutorials, and in each tutorial I would take a consonant or a vowel, or one of each, or 2 of each, and then I would give a link to a page like this. I got one of these books and copied the pages. So it's another way of getting access to material like this if you're not in Thailand. And of course, if you're in Thailand, once you've studied a bit indoors, you can just go outside, and there's practice material, reading material everywhere where you can practice. So that's what I would recommend. What I've just described will be the first step, just to get a basic book for kids and try to familiarise yourself with the sounds that different consonants and vowels make and memorise them. The next step, and here I have to assume that people who want to learn to read Thai already know a little bit of spoken Thai. So then take a familiar short word and then just look how it's written in Thai. You could use a dictionary or a Thai, if you've got a Thai friend who can help you. So for example, the word di, which means good in Thailand. What you'll see is the Dordek initial consonant, and you'll know that makes a D sound as an initial consonant. This is the other important thing, that Thai consonants, the sound does change depending on whether they're an initial or final consonant, but that would be an initial consonant to make a D sound. And then you'd see the Sara E written above, which makes the long E sound. So you'd remember the sounds that that consonant and that vowel makes, and you also remember that that particular vowel is always written above the consonant. It's written above the consonant if it's a single consonant, or it's written above the second consonant in a consonant cluster. And that's really how I would teach young kids who wanted to learn English. And if I give an example, it will also explain why Thai is actually easier than English. If I was teaching a very young Thai kid the word cat in English, I could say, that C makes a K sound and A, T. And then maybe write bat and just show how the sound remains the same, but the initial consonant changes. But in that example, the C in cat makes a K sound. So when they come up against ceiling, it makes an S sound, and then they might go on to do musical instruments and meet cello, and that C then makes a CH sound. And although there are some anomalies in Thai, generally it's a lot more phonetically consistent. So, in many ways, Thai is a lot easier to learn than English. The other thing I hear from people who are basically too lazy to learn is that Thai is too difficult to learn because there are too many consonants, 44 consonants, too many vowels. But that's not true either. For a start, there are 2 obsolete consonants that you won't ever see, and there are quite a large number of very rare consonants that hardly ever appear. In my walk-arounds recently, I haven't come across any of these consonants, and when I do, it's a struggle for me to remember the names. With the vowels, English might only have 5 vowels, but those vowels can make different sounds in different words, which is very confusing. And in Thai, you've generally got 1 vowel for 1 vowel sound. So in many ways, it's a lot easier than English. Just to summarise, initially use some learning materials for very young kids. If you're in Thailand, buy some books, buy some wall charts. If you're not, you can use material on my website. Next stage will be to look at words, simple words that you know, and then look at the spelling, and then try to understand the spelling from the sound of the word. Then just practice. Again, very easy if you're in Thailand. Every time you go out the house, you will see signs and menus absolutely everywhere. Just keep practicing. I've never stopped doing that. Unfortunately, there are a couple of other stages after that. The first is that when you do go out to practice, you'll notice that the fonts in signs look quite different to the fonts in books. It fooled me at first. It doesn't take very long to figure them out, and that's one of the reasons I've been doing these walk around videos, so we can look at actual signs in the real world. And then there's another stage with tones. So far, I won't worry too much about tones. Just try and get the basic sound of the word. And the way that Thai kids learn tones is very, very different to the way that Farangs learn tones. Farangs learn tones using tone rules, which is a very clumsy way of doing it and takes a lot of time. Thais don't. They just learn instinctively. But in order for them to learn, they need a lot of input from their Thai teachers, which you don't have, and their Thai parents, which you don't have. So it's just different. But once you're sort of fairly happy with understanding the sound of the word, then you can start looking more at tones. I'll give links below to my website tutorials, and if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below. Thank you again for watching, and see you soon in another video.